Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here because today we are unpacking an explosive modern trend that has completely taken over social media, bookstores, and, well, honestly, maybe even the minds of your own friends and family. We're talking about manifesting, otherwise known as the law of attraction. So the big question is this just a harmless tool for staying positive, or is there something much deeper and maybe even a little darker going on beneath the surface? Let's dive right in and find out. So let me ask you this. Can you simply think your way to $1 million? I really want you to consider that for a second, because right now, millions of people actively believe the answer is an absolute, undeniable yes. They literally believe that human thoughts possess a physical energy that dictates our physical reality. Just to give you an idea of the extreme modern flavor of this belief, listen to this real quote from a Reddit user who was discussing a huge TikTok trend called Lucky Girl Syndrome. They said, "Whatever I want presents itself to me. It's like I ordered from Amazon, already claimed and paid for, now waiting on arrival." They're claiming that if you just act like the luckiest person in the world, the universe essentially acts like a cosmic delivery app. You put in the mental order, and it arrives. No action required whatsoever. But here's the wild part. This concept, it's not some new Gen Z invention. It's actually a heavily recycled philosophy. It kicked off way back in the 19th century with Phineas Quimby's New Thought movement. Then, in 1910, a guy named Wallace Wattles wrote The Science of Getting Rich. And get this, that was actually a communal socialist vision about workers seizing the means of production through collective belief. Fast forward to 2006 with Rhonda Byrne's massive cultural hit The Secret, and finally to today's TikTok trends. Over time, the idea has completely shifted from a communal utopian dream into a highly individualized commercial product. Okay, let's jump into our first section, the science versus reality. You'll hear gurus throwing around some pretty heavy pseudoscientific jargon. They talk about quantum frequencies, vibrations, and the observer effect. Some of them even share entirely fake Einstein quotes to try and back it all up. But our sources, which include actual physicists, confirm this is a complete misuse of science. Your thoughts do not emit magnetic radio signals that alter the physical universe. The grounded reality is that what people are actually experiencing isn't quantum physics at all. It's just cognitive psychology. And that brings us to a super crucial psychological concept, confirmation bias. See, the human mind has a limited bandwidth for attention. If you decide right now that you really want to buy a specific red car, suddenly you're going to start seeing that red car everywhere you go. The universe didn't magically spawn more red cars for you. Your brain's confirmation bias is just doing its job. It's filtering your environment for the things you've told it are important. So, if you adopt a delusionally positive mindset, you just naturally start noticing the positive things that were already sitting right there in front of you. But there's a serious flip side to this psychological reality. I want you to try a quick experiment with me right now. Ready? Do not think of a pink elephant. Whatever you do, do not think about it. Well, you totally thought of the pink elephant, didn't you? That is the pink elephant paradox. Manifesting demands that you actively suppress any negative thoughts because they say you might attract bad things. But actual psychology shows us that actively trying to suppress thoughts makes them recur way more often. For people dealing with anxiety or depression, forcing this kind of toxic positivity actually leads to intense rumination and stress. Moving right along to section 2, the economic driver. Get this staggering statistic. Nearly 1/3 of all Americans believe in manifesting, and our sources point out that this directly correlates with another massive statistic. 3 in 4 Americans describe feeling actively financially insecure. You guys, that is not a coincidence. When you look at what's actually happening out there, our sources highlight some pretty brutal systemic socioeconomic factors driving this trend. We're looking at stagnant wages, crazy inflation, skyrocketing costs for absolute basics like housing and childcare, crushing generational debt for millennials and Gen Z, and get this, class mobility is sitting at a 150-year low. When the traditional paths to success, like getting a degree and just working really hard, no longer guarantee a stable life, magical wealth accumulation suddenly feels like the only viable path forward for a lot of people. And honestly, this requires us to have some real empathy for the movement. In an impossibly complex global economy that can feel entirely rigged and overwhelming, manifesting offers a completely free, accessible sense of control and hope. It doesn't require any startup capital, It just requires a change of mind. But, and this is a big but, we need to talk about section 3, the dark side.
Because when you start believing that your thoughts are 100% responsible for your physical reality, the consequences can be incredibly severe. We're talking about extreme toxic positivity, predators who specifically exploit vulnerable people going through breakups or job losses, and even the genuinely dangerous rejection of medical treatment, where people try to literally just think away serious illnesses. But perhaps the absolute worst offender on this list is victim blaming.
Psychologists actually have a term for this: spiritual bypassing. It's when people use spiritual practices to entirely avoid dealing with real emotional pain. Instead of processing trauma or grief, they just force these high vibrations to numb everything out. And our sources from the therapy field warn that doing this actually dysregulates your nervous system, causing profound internal physical stress. It's this incredibly cruel paradox at the heart of the law of attraction. The promise is so alluring, right? Total, absolute control over your destiny and your wealth. But the trap is devastating. Because if you take credit for all the good things that happen to you, this unfalsifiable ideology forces you to take the blame for the tragedies that are entirely outside of your control. Lost your job? Got sick? Experienced abuse? The ideology literally tells you that you manifested it with your own negative energy.
So how do we spot the difference between harmless optimism and toxic gaslighting? Well, let's break it down. In healthy psychology, goal setting means visualizing the steps and taking concrete action. In toxic manifestation, you just wish and wait. With your emotions, a healthy mind accepts and processes all feelings. Toxic manifestation demands you suppress anything negative. And when it comes to hardship, healthy psychology recognizes random or systemic factors, whereas toxic manifestation forces you to blame yourself for attracting the problem in the first place. And let me tell you, certain industries know exactly how to weaponize this against you. Did you know that 99% of people in multi-level marketing companies lose money? 99%. Our sources note that many of these MLMs actively push manifestation culture. Why? Well, because when you inevitably fail in a statistically rigged business model, the company doesn't take the blame. They just tell you that you didn't manifest hard enough or you let negative energy block your success. It is the perfect shield for corporate accountability. All right, let's wrap things up with Section 4, a healthier approach. So what do we do instead? Our psychological sources guide us through 4 super grounded steps. First, you have to start with the radical acceptance of your current reality. Second, honor all of your emotions. Sadness, anger, fear, they are valuable signals, not low vibrations. Third, take inspired concrete action. You have to do the work. And fourth, engage with your community for support. True healing and growth require confronting your issues head-on, not just visualizing a brighter tomorrow in an isolated vacuum. Because here's the truth, building real emotional resilience means forging through hardship and loss. Becoming a better person isn't always easy, and it certainly isn't always positive. It involves struggle. So don't just rely on a crutch of delusional positivity to avoid the pain of life. As the saying goes, don't wish for good rewards, wish for good problems that actually force you to grow. Which leaves us with this final thought. The universe isn't a catalog you order from, and you are absolutely not at fault for every bad thing that happens to you. Life is incredibly messy, it's complex, and yeah, sometimes it's totally unfair, but it is also deeply, deeply beautiful. So instead of trying to magically manifest a flawless, perfect reality, how can we build the resilience, the community, and the courage to actually thrive in the real one? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.